Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Benjamin Hale. We warmly welcome the family of Private Charles George Waugh, whose story will be told shortly. We are also honoured to acknowledge the Honourable Dr. Antoine Habshi, Member of Parliament for Baalbek and Hamel, Lebanon, and His Excellency Mr. Milan Raad, Ambassador of Lebanon to Australia, Brigadier General Valerie Putz, Commander French Forces in the Pacific, and Air Vice Marshal Michael Kitcher, Acting Chief of Joint Operations, and their accompanying delegations. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him in 1916 during the depths of the bloody fighting at Pozières, France. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Charles George Waugh. Charles Waugh was born in 1891, one of 5 sons born to Charles and Cecilia Waugh of the Sydney suburb of St Leonards. His father was a well-known and respected state cricket umpire. Known to his family as Charlie, Waugh was working as a storekeeper on the railway when he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in September 1915. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas shortly before Christmas, with reinforcements to the 17th Infantry Battalion, part of the 2nd Australian Division. Waugh left Australia with the rank of acting corporal, but after some minor indiscretions on his arrival in France in early 1916, he was sent back to the ranks. The 17th Battalion experienced its first major battle at Pozières on the Somme in late July 1916. On the 29th of July, the battalion attacked German positions known as the Old German Lines to the northeast of the French village. 2 waves of infantry successfully left the jumping-off trench, but as the 3rd left the trench, heavy German machine gun fire was brought to bear on their position. Under the light of an immense number of flares, the men were forced back into their original positions. Despite the heavy casualties sustained by his battalion, Charlie came through unscathed. When the attack was renewed a week later, his battalion did not take part. But by the end of their 12-day stint in the front lines, the 2nd Division had suffered a staggering number of casualties, almost 7,000. Having secured Pozières, the Australians now pushed forward to try and take Waugh Farm, a German strong point just 1 mile northwest of Pozières. The 4th, then the 1st Australian Divisions battled forward on a narrowing front under intense enemy fire, now coming virtually from 3 sides. Heavy losses continued. On the 22nd of August, the 2nd Division returned to the fray, taking over the push towards the farm. Charlie's 17th Battalion operated from a position known as the Sunken Road, southeast of Pozières. As well as providing a reserve force, the battalion sent forth patrols to conduct reconnaissance. Over the next 2 days, the Australians reorganised their forces for the 5th Brigade's planned assault upon Waugh. Meanwhile, the Germans maintained a heavy bombardment across the entire area to try and disrupt them. At some point, on the 24th of August, Private Charles Waugh was killed in action. No record remains of the manner of his death, whether he was killed while on patrol or by artillery in the reserve position. Charlie was among the 23,000 casualties the Australians suffered in just 6 weeks during the fighting around Pozières. He was 25 years old. Charlie's body was never recovered, so he's commemorated on the Australian Memorial at Villas Brentano. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of sacrifice and service told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Charles George Waugh, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, we thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.